Hey everybody, how's it going? Well, as you can see, Jeff and I are back home here in sunny Florida. Sun's out, feeling good, the temperature's just right. We arrived about, 5 days ago, and we are still trying to settle in. I did not realize how much stuff I accumulated while I was out in California, so I'm still kind of going through everything just to see what I want to keep or get rid of. So I wanted to kind of get caught up on our trip cross country, and where I left you guys off, we were in Toronto, just about ready to leave to go into the New England states. So here is our trip throughout New England. Hey everyone, what's going on? Well, today we crossed the border back into the United States and we are in New York, and we have checked into our next stop, which is the Herkimer Diamond Mines KOA here near Utica, New York. And so yep, we just settled the tab in, and of course look at this. How about that? This is a gorgeous little campsite with I guess it's called West Canada Creek, running right here in the back of our campground. And it's a beautiful day out today. They are expecting some rain tonight and some cooler temperatures, or cold temperatures. And I tell you, the tab handles the cold temperature very, very well. The heater is awesome. Really keeps us warm at night when it gets cold outside. So we are having a good time and very relaxed here with the tab camper. Tomorrow we're gonna head off to head towards Portsmouth, Rhode Island, where we're going to meet up with some families on Friday, and then head into the Halloween celebrations in Salem, Massachusetts on Saturday with my cousins. And so we're going to have a really good next few days. How's it going, Ajax? You liking it out here? How about you, Zoe? Huh? Let me fix that ear. Well, let me fix that ear. There you go. You look cuter with it down. Hey, what's going on everyone? Well, we are here in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, in a campground called Melville Ponds. It's a pretty decent place. We're gonna be here for a week. So while here, we are going to be going to Boston and Salem, Provincetown up by Cape Cod, and also Martha's Vineyard. So we got a lot of places that we're gonna see here. But the weather's kind of crappy at the moment. It's rained all day today, but fortunately things are supposed to clear up in the next few days. We're supposed to have some nice sun and really decent weather, and we're looking forward to that. But anyway, we got everything. So we did put the topper on this time, since we're going to be here for a week. So I do talk a lot about how the weather's going to be, because we do spend a lot of time out in it, because it's just too much for all of us to fit inside this little tiny camper, huddling and staying out of the weather. This is going to help. It'll keep us nice and dry, at least in that area, so that we can stay outside a little bit longer. So after arriving in Rhode Island, we ended up meeting up with my aunt and uncle in Providence, Rhode Island, or Cumberland, Rhode Island to be more specific. They wanted to take us around town and show us some things. One of the first places we went to was the site where my family is buried. And they kind of gave me a really good history. And one thing that I love about my aunt and my uncle is that they have kept up with our family history, and they're doing all the genetic testing, the DNA tracking, and all that other stuff to find out our origins. And she really enlightened me about where our family came from and all that. So they ended up taking us to one of the trips that we ended up going to was to a monastery. But we ended up going to the monastery, and we went hunting for the 9 men's misery. I don't know, we're going to some type of monastery here. My aunt and uncles are taking us through a trail to get there. So this is going to be pretty interesting. You know, I love historical stuff, so this is interesting to me. I mean, you would think that this would be more exposed for people to see, but I don't see any markings or anything like that. So I'm coming up here on this hill if I can find it. It's called Nine Man's Misery. Well, it looks like Jeff found it, so we're headed up there now. Something.
Yeah, see, Nine Men is a monument. This was all the whole street. The monument got me right here.
Well, we finally found the monument. Jeff actually found it. Woo woo! But that was really quite a nice little history about this area and the English colonists who were killed by the Narragansett Indians. They were tortured in that area that you saw. And when the English colonists or soldiers or whatever found their bodies burnt there, they piled up the rocks. And this happened in the late 1600s, right? 1600s? 20 something?
Yeah.
27?
Yeah, something like that.
And I love that kind of history. So we got to experience a little bit of some of those hidden histories of New England that you never really hear about unless you live here. And that was cool. Later on that evening, we all got together with my cousins and my aunt and uncle. They had made us some really great clam chowder, New England clam chowder. I guess in this case it's the red clam chowder. I did realize that there was the creamy white one and then the red one. So one was New England and the other one is Rhode Island, I think. One of those two, but anyway, she made us the red clam chowder. Is very delicious. Also had some stuffed quahogs with it. I do remember my father making these quahogs when we were young. Very delicious, and it was great to actually see that again. I had not had stuffed quahogs in a long time, so it was really a treat to try them again. So the next day, Saturday, we ended up taking the dogs with us to Plymouth Rock, or Plymouth, Massachusetts, where we wanted to visit Plymouth Rock. Now, I've been here when I was a kid, and I do remember seeing the Plymouth Rock plus the Mayflower, or the mock-up of the Mayflower. We were able to see Plymouth Rock, and needless to say, we were somewhat unimpressed by it. But as we were listening to the tour guide talk about Plymouth Rock, we realized that it was much larger than what it was, and that people over time had chipped off pieces of it, making it smaller, which is what the size is now. But then I also saw somewhere that this portion that we're seeing now is the top part of Plymouth Rock that had broken when they tried to move it a couple hundred years ago. Anyway, there's a story as to why it is as small as it is, and it was interesting to hear that. So while in Plymouth, we did walk around the town and had something to eat. It was a really cute New England town. Like I said, we were there to see that, and we really enjoyed ourselves walking around. So from Plymouth, we all headed up to Salem, Massachusetts to attend the Halloween festival that has been going on there. And we did not realize the immensity of this festival. Otherwise, we would not have taken Zoe and Ajax with us. So we are in Salem, Massachusetts right now, and parking is horrendous. It's Saturday. This is the weekend they're celebrating Halloween here in this town, and parking was just absolute crazy. We don't even know if we're still legally parked, but we parked anyway. We wanted to really go a little earlier to kind of see some of the sites that I saw as a kid, like the House of Seven Gables, and some of the older historical sites that are there. But unfortunately, because of the festival, a lot of the history behind Salem was obscured by all the activity and all the people, which is fine. I realize that this is Halloween, and Salem, Massachusetts goes all out in celebrating Halloween. So we were there at that time, so needless to say, we had to go through it. It would be great to go back to Salem at a time where there isn't something like a big festival going on, so that we could get a proper history and see the sites to learn about what had happened with the Puritans that colonized there. So we walked around, and really there was a lot of people, a lot of activities going on. There was a carnival there with some rides, and then there were some haunted houses that people could go through and tour. And later on that day, that evening, we ended up catching up with my aunt, uncle, and my cousins, and going through and walking around. But needless to say, we had a really great time in Salem. Like I said, we would want to visit there again just to get the history. We'll have to do that again in the near future.
What you doing? You shivering? Why you shivering? It's really not that cold out here, little monkey. Little monkeys.
Hey y'all, well, it is the night after our Salem, Massachusetts trip for Halloween, and we kind of slipped in this morning because we didn't get here till a little after 11 o'clock, and we were exhausted because yesterday we ran so much. We went to Plymouth, and then of course traffic through Boston was horrible on our way up to Salem, and then we spent several hours in Salem. Really nice. The dogs really enjoyed it. There was a lot going on. We are headed into Boston today to do a run around of it and going to some of the great areas that they have, particularly Quincy Market in that area. So we ended up having to take the train in to Boston because we didn't want to deal with the traffic going in. And it really was an easy commute into the city. But once in the city, we ended up heading straight for Quincy Market. It was around lunchtime, and Quincy Market was the best place to go to find food, in my opinion, because there was such a variety of things that you could choose from while there. The market is huge. Inside is pretty much lined with restaurants and places to get food. And surrounding Quincy Market was a lot of shopping where we bought a lot of souvenirs from. And from Quincy Market, we ended up going into the north end of Boston, which is Boston's Little Italy. From there, we got to tour around the area. We got to see Paul Revere's house and the North End Church as well, which played pivotal roles in the Revolutionary War. And the area in general is just really cute. There are really cute restaurants and coffee houses and pastry places and shops for doing shopping. Really cute area of town. The Freedom Trail runs through this area, so if you're following the Freedom Trail, it would lead you to a lot of the historical landmarks that played a role in the Revolutionary War. So that night we ended up having a really bad storm go through the area, and I'm talking about 40 or 50 mile per hour sustained winds. In the middle of the night, I had to get up and climb over the camper to pull down the canvas so that it wouldn't sustain any damage. We woke up the next morning and there were just leaves and branches. Some trees had toppled down, and thousands of people actually ended up losing their power that night. So that day, the weather ended up clearing up a little bit, so we decided that we would take a drive into Provincetown, Massachusetts, which is on the very tip of Cape Cod. Provincetown is a really great small town, and it really does have that coastal New England feel to it, and it also made us think about Key West and how Key West was and looks and feels with the restaurants and the shops. It's a very progressive town, yet it really fights to keep its traditional historical value to it. So we really enjoyed it. The weather was still very windy, but the sun started to come out and warm things up. And so it ended up being a very enjoyable day. We walked around the city looking at, or the town, just looking at buildings and going shopping from store to store. Very dog-friendly place. You can literally walk in almost any store except restaurants. with your pet, and they are all welcomed there. So we had a really great time taking Billy and Ajax throughout the town. After leaving the city, we ended up just driving around to see the perimeter of the town, and before headed back to the campgrounds. The most prominent landmark in Provincetown is this huge structure called the Pilgrim Monument. And I did not know this. Apparently, Provincetown was the first place the Pilgrims actually landed before headed to Plymouth. This really isn't told in any of the history books, but in fact it is. They landed there 5 weeks before they landed or decided to leave to head to Plymouth. And the reason why they did was because I guess the Pilgrims ended up getting into a skirmish with the local natives, the Indians there, and the Pilgrims decided, you know what, it's not worth it. Let's go ahead and find another place to live, and so they left and landed in Plymouth afterwards. Like I said, this is what's awesome about traveling to these places, is that you don't get to see or hear about these little stories that kind of makes sense unless you go and visit and see them. I'm sure you can look it up on the internet and find it out, but there's nothing like actually being there to see the history. So Tuesday, October 31st was our last full day in the New England area, and we decided that we were going to go ahead and go to Martha's Vineyard. We wanted to go to Martha's Vineyard, and this was our opportunity. So unfortunately, we couldn't take our truck onto the ferry because you have to reserve a spot in order to take it across. So we ended up having to park about 2 miles down the road and take the bus in to the terminal where the ferry leaves from. And then, so we'll do that also on the Martha Vineyard side. So we'll just walk wherever we needed to go, which kind of sucks. We wanted to drive around the island, but I guess that's out of the question. So apparently, the ferry services yesterday, we had this huge storm come in the night before. I mean, it was lots of rain, and the wind was ridiculous. I had to climb all over the camper to pull down the canvas that covers the camper in order for it not to get damaged. But apparently they canceled all of the ferries between the mainland and Martha's Vineyard because this area was way too rough for them to cross. And so when we arrived in Vineyard Haven, the town that the ferry arrives in, so we ended up renting a Jeep to go around the island since we couldn't take our truck, and our whole purpose for coming here is we wanted to drive around the island, so this was the only way to do it. And pretty much what we did was we drove along the coast, kind of sightseeing and really just getting out of our car and taking pictures and enjoying this beautiful day and a beautiful drive around Martha's Vineyard. Every once in a while you run into a small town on the island, and you get to see the little shops and restaurants that are there. So like I said, we drove around the island, really enjoying the sights and the western portion of Martha's Vineyard. And we ended up buying some souvenirs there in a little Native American town there. From there, we ended up heading back to Vineyard Haven and taking the ferry back to Woods Hold.
Lucky it is so. I'm glad that it is so. I'm lucky it is so.
So anyway, that was our whole trip to New England. Jeff and I really enjoyed it. We liked the fall, the fact that it was the fall season and the colors were out. We loved the fact that it was around Halloween, and of course Thanksgiving wasn't far behind. And we got to see Plymouth and Plymouth Rock and Salem, Massachusetts, and all these areas where the first colonists had arrived in the New World from Europe. And the great thing about this is that we learned a lot from being there, and really we learned a lot more than we would otherwise learn because of the local stories and the local histories that you get while you're there. We definitely got to go back. We have to go back when the weather's warmer and there's less activity like in Salem, but we really enjoyed our time there, and like I said, we look forward to headed back there in the near future. So the next video, we are on our way to New York City, and I tell you what, we love New York City, and we were at an RV park just across the Hudson River on the New Jersey side, Jersey City, with a great view of the Statue of Liberty and downtown Manhattan.